Chris Carter here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. With the Arizona Cardinals set to release Kyler Murray, should the Steelers be big players, or should they stick to Aaron Rodgers or their current plan of figuring things out through the draft or not through the draft? We'll talk about that and a full first-round mock draft between me and Nick as we show you how we think the first round will play out after the combine. All here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things on the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find the show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of our daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus content. We thank you for making us your first listen every day, because we're your team every day. And a reminder, the Locked On Steelers podcast is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is now the #1 sports podcasting network in the world. As I said before, we're joined by the man himself, Nick Farabaugh from PennLive.com. He's back with me. We were both in Indianapolis, hitting the pavement, talking to the people on podiums, all that jazz. But Nick, normally the week after the combine, I spent fully dedicated to breaking down things we saw. But we got to take a step back because big news is hitting the NFL. Kyler Murray, he's not being traded. He's being cut, unless something else happens before then. But the Cardinals basically saying, hey, we're going to be getting rid of Kyler Murray. And so now a question emerges for the Steelers, because if Kyler Murray is getting all that guaranteed money, they could have a situation like they did with Russell Wilson. They could get a guy for low money who's a veteran, comes with a ton of experience, and is athletic, and bring him to the Steelers as the quarterback option. Or should they stick with Aaron Rodgers and what he has there? Or should they draft Ty Simpson or whatever it is? There's options out there. But this feels like this is different from other guys, because Nick, when we compare this to recent quarterbacks, even Russell Wilson, when he was brought to the Steelers on that, Russell Wilson was, being phased out of his career at that point, right? Like he was pretty much, he was over the hill. Kyler Murray is going to be 29 years old. And he's a franchise quarterback. He was a first overall pick. He hasn't put up supreme numbers recently. But what's your take on how much should the Steelers be in on trying to make this happen versus just trying to do what they've been doing until they draft their next guy?
Yeah, the injuries with Kyler have definitely been something this year. Obviously, that was something with him. How does he handle an AFC North schedule? The wet rain, the snow. If he has to, that's all questions with Kyler. But I sent this out on Twitter. I don't think there's a better bang for your buck option than Kyler. If he is on the vet minimum relative to how he's going to play, you also get the opportunity to throw that dart and say, maybe we can fix him. Now, I don't really think Kyler is going to get fixed. I kind of think he is what he is. I think some of the premium tools he had are a little bit in decline, largely due to injuries and wear and tear. So I don't think he's quite the special athlete he was coming out of Oklahoma in 2019. But I think we also look at Kyler, and you can say this like, okay, would you rather have Kyler on the vet min or, Rodgers for 11 with incentives laid on? I think there's a real question of that. Like, I really think Kyler, people are going to say, no, Kyler, he's small, he's been hurt and everything. And I get it. Kyler Murray is not a very good, is not a great fit. There's some definite issues. He's a sideline thrower, doesn't really throw over the middle of the field. Large part of that is the same thing with the Russ discussion, right? He can't necessarily see over his offensive line. So you're going to be a sideline-oriented team. But on top of this, it is like you're just running on the hamster wheel again. And so to a degree, what I think is –
I think Steelers fans are getting a little tired of that hamster wheel.
And so I think that there's definitely a argument to be said, hey, there is like at least a potential you can pop into this thing and say, there's a vet min. He's got tools, obviously. The arm's a rocket arm. He's got a launcher on him. And he's got some ability to still have a QB run game designed around him. So there's like this argument of maybe you can fix him. I don't think you will be able to. But relative to cost, it's nothing, man. It's nothing. It's the vet minimum. So you're not really asking much of that. So it is a really good dart throw option. And to me, I mean, listen, Aaron Rodgers has obvious limitations now too. He doesn't handle pressure very well. So anytime pressure gets around him, he kind of collapses and caves in. And so the real question I think you have to ask is, what do you play the opportunity cost of the stability plus the mentorship and locker room leadership Aaron Rodgers will give you versus the ability to maybe take the dart throw at Kyler for the low opportunity cost? So that's really the weighing of those two options to me. If you're weighing Rodgers versus Kyler, it's stability versus maybe trying to find that long-term answer. I don't think, Kyler is going to be your long-term answer, but that is, I think, the equation you're doing if you're looking at a Kyler Murray, if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers.
If you're Mike McCarthy and you're a new head coach and you're sitting there and you get to reunite with Aaron Rodgers, you also know what Aaron Rodgers meant to a lot of people in the Steelers locker room last year. How much does that play a factor in here? Like, yes, one guy is, in his 20s, one guy's in his 40s, one guy is a lot more athletic right now. But one guy has more experience. One guy knows this organization now after a year. One guy definitely knows this head coach. He'd be able to take on a lot of the things that this head coach wants to do. And maybe you can plan, or you could argue, hey, yeah, he's not going to deal with pressure that well, but maybe you can plan for how to deal with that versus maybe with Kyler Murray with his size limitations. And again, something that Omar Khan, said, and you touched on just now, but Omar Khan said we need an AFC North quarterback. And that's the question that I have is, does Aaron Rodgers' connection with the Steelers after a year and a connection to Mike McCarthy, does that weigh in against Kyler Murray as well?
I'll say this, from what I just said, from a strict on the field standpoint, where I'm really not taking in leadership or anything of that sort, Kyler's the move. But as you mentioned, the argument for Rodgers is all around the intangibles, the stability. You think Pat Freiermuth doesn't want just one time to have a second year with the same quarterback? Like, that has never happened in Pat Freiermuth's career, Chris. He has been with the Steelers since 2021, and it's been a different quarterback starting every single season. That's crazy. And the stability of it, breaking into new offense. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers knows Mike McCarthy's offense in and out, so he can mentor you through that. So that's the argument for Rodgers, man, is he's just going to bring this high level standard. He's going to help guys out. He's going to be a mentor. He's going to help you learn the offense. He's going to bring this certain level of stability. Because here's the thing, and I do think from, if you are looking on the outside and you're saying, hey, I want to see what happens on the field, you want to take the dart throw Kyler Murray because it's better process-wise, I get it. I think it's a smart process. I think Aaron Rodgers is what he is. And so I don't blame anyone saying take the Kyler option over Aaron Rodgers. But I also think, and really this just goes not just for Kyler Murray or Aaron Rodgers. It goes for, I don't care if you're signing Daniel Jones. They can't do that anymore because he got transition tagged. But you could sign literally anyone on that free agency market. And most likely those guys are probably just going to end you up back where you are now next year, right? You're just going to be looking for the quarterback option unless you take someone in the draft. And I think you and I both agree we are not huge fans of Ty Simpson or Drew Aller or Garrett Nussmeier to be the answer. So to me, if the Steelers were going to look at this from a pure process standpoint, Kyler's the right pick. If you're looking at it from an organizational culture standpoint where you're like, hey, get a guy here that's been in this system. You can bring the stability. He knows what we're like. He knows the players. It's going to be really easy to just go through the summer with Aaron Rodgers. Fine. I get it. And so that is kind of the two arguments to me is on the field process wise, if I'm a front office guy, I'm thinking the Kyler one makes total sense to me. Even though it's unlikely to work, it's better as a dart throw because maybe there's at least something of a long-term process to that. Aaron Rodgers is a very now move, but neither of these guys, let's be real here, Chris, and I think you'd agree with me, neither of these guys is turning the Pittsburgh Steelers into a Super Bowl contender this year. No. I don't believe that. And so to me, whatever happens if you pick between those two guys is you're probably right back where you are this year. So it is what it is.
That's my thing here is that I know a lot of people are going to press like this is a super duper, one pick is going to be so much better than the other. I think that there's merits to both decisions here if you were to go either way. I'm interested about Malik Willis, where he goes and what he does this year. But I think there's an acknowledgement that like the Steelers are still looking for that franchise guy who can be the long-term answer, who can give them the window back. And I don't think Kyler Murray gives you that. I think Kyler Murray gives you another solid veteran who comes in with athleticism, but also comes in with his weaknesses. Like you said, seeing over the middle part of the field, being able to attack there. It wasn't like Kyler Murray was lighting it up in Arizona. He had that, 2021, he led him to a 9-5 record, had 24 touchdowns to 10 interceptions and was looking solid there. But he's had limited numbers since then. And granted, that might not be all his fault. Arizona's been a mess. But if I'm the Steelers, I am wondering, how durable is he? I want to get medicals. How is this guy good to go? He only played 5 games last season. He hasn't had a winning record as a starter since 2021. I need to know how healthy he is, because he's also only played 1 full season and one season with at least 12 starts in it since 2021. So that to me is a big worry, because again, when it comes to Omar Khan, he talks about playing AFC North football.
This is why I'm not going to get overly emotional about any of these options. I can point out a big hole in every single option.
Yep.
I like Malik Willis, and I think that there's a real argument to be made to throw that dart at someone. But 1, you're probably paying more than $20 million per year for a guy that has 6 starts in his career. And 2, if you really watch the tape, there's about 30 to maybe 35 true dropbacks to where you can evaluate Malik Willis. It's a lot of play action. It's a lot of RPOs, a lot of screens. It's a lot of real easy predetermined reads for him when you watch the film. There's not a lot of pure drop back stuff where you're just reading things out. And so that's a very limited sample size for a guy you're going to pay $40 million for over 2 years, right? That's a big one. And then you could just look at the other options. I mean, if Daniel Jones had hit the market, we're talking about a guy that had been mediocre his entire career, then tore his Achilles right during it. Kirk Cousins had fallen off his entire career, right? Like Aaron Rodgers, again, the clear limitation Rodgers has, 43 years old, doesn't handle pressure well. And we just talked extensively about what Kyler's limitations are. Ty Simpson, if we want to go to Ty Simpson, what's his limitation? He had probably a really bad second half of the year. And you want to talk about durability? We're talking about a guy that had a back issue, a cracked rib, and dealt with gastritis. So, we're talking about a guy that had been beat up in his first year of starting in the SEC. And so I can poke a big hole in all of these quarterback answers that you might throw out there. So I am not beholden to any of these guys. So it's not a great place to be in if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's what I'm saying.
Still basically in the same spot they have been. We'll see how they proceed throughout free agency, which, by the way, starts this time next week. Although I guess the tampering period starts Monday, but you guys get what I'm saying. It's going to be a wild time. But I want to dip back into draft talk, because y'all know that's a big thing that I always enjoy. And we're going to talk about our full first round mock drafts. Myself and Nick, we've put together 32 picks, how we see this first round playing out, who we have the Steelers taking if there's a no trade mock. You'll get that next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, here with Nick Farabaugh. Stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, I'll remind you this show is brought to you by BetterHelp. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. March is a time to celebrate women, especially around International Women's Day, and to recognize just how much they carry at work, in relationships, in families, and in all the unseen roles they step into every single day. It's easy to celebrate that strength, but it's just as important to make space for their emotional well-being. And honestly, that goes for all of us. I think about my mother and how much she carries without always saying so. And it makes me think how many of us are doing the same thing. The roles we play, the expectations we carry, the pressure we don't always talk about. Therapy can help us with all of that, creating balance, setting healthy boundaries, and supporting your overall well-being. With over 30,000 licensed therapists and more than 6 million people served worldwide, BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform, and it works. Fill out a short questionnaire, get matched with a licensed therapist, and if it's not the right fit, you can switch at any time. Your emotional well-being matters. Find support and feel lighter in therapy. Sign up and get 10% off at BetterHelp.com/lockedon. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/locked on. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm your host, Chris Carter, here with Nick Farabaugh of PennLive.com. I want to remind you can join the Everydayer Club for all of our NFL teams. Free agency is here, and so are we. Get 1 month free at the Everydayer Club with code FREEAGENCY, no spaces. Now through March 15th, you can go ad-free for the Locked On Steelers podcast. Keep this conversation going on Discord. All right, Nick, let's get into this. Now, I thank Nick because I asked him in the middle of the day on Tuesday to come out with his first round mock. I have a full first round mock available at post-gazette.com. You can read it there. Nick's, I believe, comes out later this week with our boy Johnny McGonigal, also at Penn Live. But I wanted to take a chance to say, now that we're out of the combine, let's do a full first round mock, all 32 picks, but with no trades allowed. So every team as they are picks where they are, and that's where we're at. So Nick, with that, we got a chance to kind of break things down, look at how we would go about things with this draft. And so I was able to take our picks, put them side by side, and that's what's going to let us get to the picks as they're going to happen there. So without further ado, let's get to how these picks started out. Our picks, our first few picks are kind of identical in a lot of ways. First overall pick, everyone, this is the free square on the bingo board. Fernando Mendoza to the Las Vegas Raiders. It's happening. So that's your first overall pick. If you want to get one right, you will there. Nick and I both then went second overall, Arvell Reese to the Jets. Arvell Reese, off-ball linebacker / edge rusher, just seems like the most the dynamic weapon that teams are going to be looking at here. But then our first split came on our third pick, where I had Ruben Bain, the edge rusher, Ruben Bain Jr., the edge rusher from Miami, going to Arizona. Nick had Jeremiah Love. Some people say he might be the best player in this draft class overall. He goes to the Cardinals, but then we both have David Bailey, edge rusher out of Texas Tech, going to the Tennessee Titans. Nick, run down on your players here. Why you have Love going at third overall when people say running back can't be valued that high?
I mean, we always hear this, and then we get a talent like Jeremiah Love, who I think really is a special talent, and he's the best offensive playmaker in this class. And I really just look at a guy like Mike LaFleur, who, is a first-year head coach there. They need a star, like just a true star beside Trey McBride to like build this operation around, this ship around. And I really think, I think that's the Malik Willis landing spot. And so I think of Malik Willis, Jeremiah Love, you got Trey McBride, you got Marvin Harrison Jr., you got Michael Wilson. Like, all right, man, like we're starting to cook here with a little bit of a playmaking core. And that's also just one, Chris, really, honestly, the reason I honestly put him there is that was a pairing I heard a few times in Mobile and then brought up again at the Combine. Like, it's been one thing that has kind of been a decently consistent thing. And so there seems like there might be some smoke to this. So I don't really hate the Ruben Bain pick at all from you. But Jeremiah Love is, I think, maybe the best player in this draft, and I think is a real weapon for what I think would fit in well as well with Mike LaFleur's offense.
Let's move to our next four picks in this draft, 5 through 8. We both share the same in 5 to Sonny Styles to the New York Football Giants. I've heard some things. I've heard some rumors that they really like him. I really like him. I thought he blew up the combine. He just looks like a Superman when he's testing. So Sonny Styles at 5 makes sense. We then split, but we both have the Browns going tackle. You have Monroe Fielding out of Georgia. I have Francis Maui-Noa out of Miami, and then we go to the Commanders. You have them. That's where you have Ruben Bain Jr. going. He goes to the Commanders as an edge rusher. I have them getting Carnell Tate to pay Jane Daniels. And then we both finish with wide receivers going to the Saints. You have Tate going there at 8 to the Saints. I have Makai Lemon going at 8 to the Saints. Both of us, though, I think showing the priority of Tate still being the first receiver off the board. Nick, there are a lot of Steelers fans who I think saw Sonny Styles on tape and saw his testing. Is there any chance that he falls to the bottom end of the top 10 and the Steelers could be in trade up territory? Or is this just, hey man, that guy gone?
I mean, I suppose there is, right? I guess we can't rule it out. He is an off-ball linebacker. It's not a premium position, but man, we are talking about an absolutely special player there. If I were making a big board, Chris, he'd be my number one player. I love Sonny Styles. And that was before the testing. The tape is just so good. He is despite not being a premium position, he is a transforming player for your defensive team and the personnel around it. I think he is a super special player and as blue chip as blue chippers get. So, yeah, easy pick for me at 5 for the Giants. They need a guy like that. And really, I just do not see how a team passes him up. There's not enough blue chip talent at premium spots to pass up a guy like that.
Now, to continue on this list, we don't need to go over the tackles. I think that's not a position the Steelers are going to necessarily look at too hard in this draft class, and Ruben Bain with an edge rusher. But wide receiver here, I go Tate and Lemon. You go Tate at 8. Both of them gone. I think that's the position that everyone's going to watch. Is there a run at wide receiver? And I think it's going to be interesting to see how both of us have this play out in just these mocks. And again, mocks are not saying, hey, this is definitely how it's going to happen. These are experiments by us to see, like, hey, what fits where. If what we're hearing matches what we're seeing on tape and what we're hearing from the combine, and then what we see with pro day, and then who lists in their top 30 visits. If all of that lines up, how does this play out, and what are the different ways this could play out? And again, with removing trades, that of course makes it so like this literally can't. But for me, when I take out trades, because then trades can always you could throw so many wrenches into a draft and it go in different directions. But this gives us a chance to evaluate each team, what their needs are, and how we perceive them, and that they should attack it based off of how we've seen things develop here. So going with that, let's get to our next group here to see how many more receivers start flying off the board. This is 9 through 12. I have Jeremiah Love, the running back, going to Notre Dame, going to the Chiefs. Caleb Downs, the safety from Ohio State, he goes to the Bengals at 10th overall. 11th overall is the cornerback Mansour Delane at LSU. He goes to the Dolphins. And at 12th overall, Kedrick Falk, the edge rusher out of Auburn, he goes to the Cowboys. Nick has Caleb Downs going to the Chiefs at 9. Mansour Delane going to the Bengals at 10. Kedrick Falk going to the Dolphins at 11, and Jermon McCoy, the Tennessee cornerback, going to the Cowboys at 12. So a bit of similarities here. We both have Downs and Delane and Falk, all three kind of going with each other. I think I held on to Jeremiah Love a little bit longer than you did. Downs kind of just both came out for us a little bit, around the same time. Same with these other guys. Jermon McCoy, pretty sure is coming up for me pretty soon too. But Downs is another guy that I love his tape. To me, he's that guy that's right at the top of my big board. I just think that teams might look at these other positions and say, hey, value wise, signing, getting a guy at top 10 pick wise and keeping it at a rate, it would make sense to get this player versus a safety. But to me, whoever gets Caleb Downs, I think is getting a culture changer. And I think that's interesting. If the Chiefs get Caleb Downs, I feel like that's oh no, how did they get that guy? Whereas if the Bengals get him, for Steelers fans, that might be oh no, how'd they get that guy? But either way, I like him and Delane and Falk, all as defensive threats to come out right around this time. It just depends on who wants who and where.
Bad defenses in that tier, man. I mean, the Chiefs, the Bengals, the Cowboys, and the Dolphins all were not good defensively last year. So that's why, I just went 4 straight defensive players down the board. Love went early for me. To me, if Love's not on the board, I guess if the Chiefs could go Makai Lemon in my board, I wouldn't be stunned by that. They need a receiver. They could go tackle too, like Malioga, I think fits there. Spencer Fano. There's a few other guys that I could have thrown in there for them. But it really just made sense for me to Caleb Downs. They need a real difference maker defensively outside of just Chris Jones. They need someone there in that secondary. That secondary was dying. Plus, there's legit rumors that they're going to trade Trent McDuffie. They do that. That is going to be absolutely – Jalen Watson's a free agent. They just need someone in that secondary, whether it's a safety, a slot, a corner, someone to come in there and make a real impact. Caleb Downs would do it. If Downs is on the board at 10, I think the Bengals have to take him. So yeah. I get where you went there. But if he goes before that, I think it makes a lot of sense for the Chiefs to do it. Falk, really, it just was the fact that Delane was off the board. I think they're very corner needy. And they have been, the Packers in general have been very medical sensitive. So I didn't want to give them Jermon McCoy, given his ACL injury. The Cowboys, meanwhile, have not. So they need a lot of help, especially a corner with no Trayvon Diggs around anymore. So that made a lot of sense to me.
There we go. Let's get to the last group before we get to our next break here. That's 13 through 16 here. Moving right along. That's where I have Jermon McCoy going 13th overall to the Rams. They need a corner, in my opinion. I then have Jordyn Tyson, the receiver out of Arizona State. He goes to Baltimore, pairing up with Lamar Jackson and Zay Flowers, just trying to get him finally a superstar weapon there. Cassius Howe, edge rusher out of Texas A&M. He goes at 15 to the Buccaneers. And then Caleb Banks, my first defensive tackle off the board out of Florida, who lit up the combine, lit up the Senior Bowl. He goes 16th to the Jets, sort of replacing the Quinn and Williams absence that they traded away. You went 13. Makai Lemon, that's where you have the USC wide receiver, going 13th overall to the Rams. Dang, did they just ever run out of receivers? And then 14th overall, we have the Ravens taking Oliva Vega Ioane out of Penn State, top guard in the draft, I think, universally. Then you have Francis Mauigoa out of Miami, the tackle, going 15th overall to the Buccaneers. And then Peter Woods, your first defensive tackle off the board, at 16th overall, he goes to the Jets. Nick, running down, I want to focus on the Ravens real quick. I have them going receiver. You have them going guard. They certainly struggled in the interior, and they look like they might be losing Tyler Linderbaum, so I get what you're going there. But could the Ravens be serious players to finally get a receiver in this really strong draft class?
100%. It was Ioane, Mauigoa, and Tyson for me at that spot. I ended up going with Ioane because I think, the way people talked about him around the combine was like he was a blue chipper. And to me, Eric DeCosta's always been a BPA guy. They have a really bad need at guard. I mean, Voorhees, Falele were just disasters at guard for them. Falele is a free agent, so filling in Ioane there. I mean, that would be a terrible pick for the Steelers. Like, Ioane is going to be there for a decade, man, and is going to be a really good player. So that to me made sense. Mauigoa also made a lot of sense to me for them. Ronnie Stanley's not getting any younger, but I gave him to the Bucs. The Bucs really don't necessarily need a ton of help along the offensive line, but Mauigoa is like the BPA, and you can plug him in at guard or tackle for them, and just bolsters a really good group that they already have. But Ioane I put there because of the massive struggles they had. I thought the struggles last year the Ravens had were far less wide receiver related and were much more related to their interior line.
There you have it. We have those breakdowns with those 16 players off the board. Who gets to 21 when the Steelers pick? We'll get to those picks next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter, Nick Farabaugh, stick with us. We'll be right back.
Hey, it's Matt Derry from the Locked On Lions podcast. The people I love depend on me. If I'm gone, the financial responsibilities don't disappear. I didn't want my family figuring things out during the hardest moment of their lives. That's why I knew only one place to go. I chose life insurance through my friends at Ethos. Ethos makes getting life insurance fast and easy, 100% online. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and get same-day coverage. There's no medical exam. You just answer a few simple health questions. You can get up to $3 million in coverage. Some policies are as low as $30 a month. I love the folks at Ethos. Protect your family with life insurance from Ethos now by going to ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. In as little as 10 minutes, you can get the free quote and up to $3 million in coverage at ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. That is ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. Ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. Application times and rates may vary.
Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, Chris Carter here with Nick Farabaugh, breaking things down. Nick, run us through these next picks here for you. You got Caleb Lomu, tackle. You're going at 17th overall to the Lions. Avion Terrell, corner out of Clemson, going 18th overall to the Vikings. 19th overall, tight end, first tight end off the board, Kenyon Sadiq, going to the Panthers. And then Dylan Thieneman, your second safety off the board, out of Oregon, goes to the Cowboys. Give us your rationale here.
Yeah, the Lions need the offensive line help like no other. Lomu fits in that really well. Ditto for the Vikings and corners. They need a lot of help. Avion Terrell is the best corner left on the board, and I think has real high-end talent, so he fits in there with McCoy going earlier. Kenyon Sadiq is a BPA pick for me. He's like a lesser version of the guys we talked about earlier. I think he's a much better player than the 19th overall slot here. And really, the Panthers, I mean, they have some needs that they have, but nothing just blatant to me. And Sadiq fits in. They need a tight end. Tommy Tremble is a starting tight end right now. I think he's a guy that can really be a really good difference maker along with Ted McMillan for them. And Thieneman, I mean, to me, the Cowboys just need defense, man. And he's a really high floor player. He would be a guy that's a real stabilizer for them in the secondary. They need a ton of help in the secondary. So I think doubling up in the secondary, McCoy and Thieneman would be really solid for the Cowboys, honestly.
So I went with, on my side, at 17th overall, I also went tackle at that stage, going 17th overall to the Lions, Monroe Freeling. You had him going earlier. I had Dylan Thieneman then going at safety to the Vikings, adding to their secondary in a different way. And then Akeem Mesidor, other edge rusher out of Miami, he goes 19th overall to the Panthers. And then 20th overall, that's where I have Avion Terrell, the Clemson cornerback, going to the Cowboys. So that being said, both of us have 2 safeties off the board. I believe both of us have 3 cornerbacks off the board. I think the biggest difference between our picks there, I think I have more edge rushers off, but I have all 3 of my top receivers off the board by then: Tate, Lemon, and Tyson. And so that's where it gets interesting, is that with those guys gone, where do I see them going? Do they go after Denzel Boston? Do they go after the position? Nick, you went right to it. You said if it falls that way, Steelers are taking wide receiver, revealing our picks. I went a different, because they were off the board. I didn't go Denzel Boston. I went Kayden McDonald, the defensive tackle out of Ohio State. I know a lot of people are going to say they need to go wide receiver, and I think they will a lot on day 2, twice even. But with the way that I see this board playing out, if there's no trades there and you're sitting there with Denzel Boston, I have Kayden McDonald as just a better player. That's where I have him going. You have Jordyn Tyson, the Arizona State wide receiver, who, hey, learned under Hines Ward. So certainly Steelers fans would love to see that. This would very much fit that. Tyson, though, had the injuries throughout his career, didn't test at the combine. People wondering, oh my goodness, is he still hurt? A lot of big questions there as far as his status there. But Nick, what are the Steelers getting if they get Jordyn Tyson? Could this be another situation where, like Darnell Washington, Zach Frazier, where a guy just fell to them who's going to be really, really valuable because of medicals and teams being worried?
Yeah, the comparison I would give is Falatanu. If you remember when Falatanu came out, he had that knee concern, right? That was the red flag on his. And Tyson just has a general gotten hurt every year concern. To me, he is a ball winner. He's a route runner. He's a guy that can play inside or outside, and they need a guy that can really run any route in the book. He runs every route in the book. Runs that at a high level. His intermediate ability to just kind of open up on digs and slants and things like that is something they do not have on this roster. He is the missing piece they don't have at that wide receiver position, because he is the ultimate. Put him in the formation, let him do what he wants. You know, similar to how the Cowboys operated this year, where they ran a very McCarthy-ish offense, where Pickens kind of Pickens had his own routes, right? He was really going on slants. He was really going on digs. He had the routes, but it was really CeeDee Lamb that was the chess piece that moved around and allowed George Pickens to do a lot of different things in terms of the formation. Think of Tyson as the CeeDee Lamb who moves around the formation, does a bunch of different things, allows DK Metcalf to really become that explosive weapon for you. That is the type of player they really need. So Jordyn Tyson is a perfect fit. If he's there at 21, and we have seen the Steelers' ability to just throw the medicals out of the window. They don't care about medicals. Like, that has been a theme. Falatanu, Harmon, Washington, Wilson, all of these guys, they've taken medicals. And so Tyson to me fits in perfectly. And I don't think it's like wholly unrealistic, despite the talent Jordyn Tyson is, to think he could fall to 21 with all those medical questions. I don't necessarily think it's going to be the most likely outcome, but I mean, I did this exercise and I'm like, I don't think anything I did was wholly unrealistic to get on the 21. And so I think it's certainly on the possibility board this year.
I think it's going to be tricky because I think wide receiver is so strong this year that it's always tricky when you have such a strong class, right? When you're looking at this and I'm thinking, okay, if it's strong, they're going to fly off the board. But do they not fly off the board because people are like, hey, I can get my wide receiver later and I can get this player right here. And that's kind of what I did with Kayden McDonald, because I think there's some good defensive tackles here, but this would be the pick that would be like, okay, we are truly preparing for the departure of Cam Hayward within the next year or two. And now we have Benton, we have Harmon, we have McDonald. All those guys play factors in there, and McDonald would be that last piece that you can say, okay, now the rest can be like day 3 picks who we try to develop or low-level free agents. But if the Steelers sign Benton long term, and then McDonald and Harmon pair with him, you have 3 stud linemen in the middle of your trenches, ready to go for the next few years. I think that would make a lot of sense. Then playing out the rest of our picks throughout the rest of the first round, you had the Chargers going Spencer Fano with their pick at 22nd overall. I had them going Ioane because he was still on my board. Then that's where at 23rd overall to the Eagles, that's where I have Kenyon Sadiq, tight end out of Oregon. You have Caden Proctor, the tackle out of Alabama. Then at 23rd overall going to the Eagles. Then at 24th to the Browns, I have them going Denzel Boston, the receiver out of Washington. You have them going Blake Miller, the tackle out of Clemson right there. And then going out the rest of the way. We both then continue. We both went same position for the Bears at 25. I just went Peter Woods out of Clemson. You went Caleb Banks. We kind of both just flipped those two guys where we saw them going. We're both unanimous on 26th overall. If the Bills are here, they're getting Casey Concepcion. A lot of people are talking about how much they loved him at the Combine. Really good stuff there. 27th overall, the Niners, I have them getting Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, the safety out of Toledo. You have them getting Akeem Mesidor, the edge rusher out of Miami that I talked about earlier. Then at 28, both of us have the Texans getting defensive tackles. Lee Hunter, as with my pick, you have Kayden McDonald as he was my Steelers pick there. Running through those names, I think Casey Concepcion is the thing here. But again, I just think it's interesting. Wide receivers are going here at this stage. I think in your board, you still have Denzel Boston available here. And I don't think that when I'm trying to cheat on the last 4 picks, but I don't think that you pick him at all in the first round. What led to Denzel Boston falling so far?
Listen, I think Denzel Boston is just he's a bit of a typecast receiver in the past few years that we've seen fall. He's a bigger bodied guy that doesn't always naturally create separation. And that, I think, some teams are wary of those guys. And listen, I think he's a little stiff in his ankles, so I don't think he runs super crisp routes or separates at the top of routes like you'd like. He separates through physicality. He's got great hands. I love that he plays big. He is big, so you better play big. I love that about him. But I also think teams are going to look at, separators like Concepcion and the guy I picked, evidently 4 picks. We're not going to spoil it, but the other guy that I'm going to pick here at wide receiver also does this in a similar way. Also just the fit for that guy, I think fit a lot better than Denzel Boston in this one. But that's why I think Boston's like a high part of the second round guy. I think he's going to go between 33 and 41, somewhere in that range. I just think when I watched the tape, I didn't see first round player. I didn't see top 30 player, honestly. He's my top 40, but to me, he's a high end second round guy. So I like Concepcion better than him, and I also like the guy that will show up on your screen probably in about 5 seconds.
Actually, I really like this guy too, and I regret that he's not in my first round picks here because I love him too. But let's get to our next pick at 29th overall. The Rams getting their second pick. We both have them going Ty Simpson, which I think is really intriguing. Getting Ty Simpson just saying, hey, you're learning behind Matt Stafford, buddy. Just sit back there and shut up. I think that is that is an interesting fit for Ty Simpson. We'll talk about that in a sec. But then at 30th overall, I have the Broncos going C.J. Allen, linebacker of Georgia. I love C.J. Allen. He will be nasty in that defense. And then at 31st overall, I have Spencer Fano, tackle, going to the Patriots. They need O-line help somewhere after this past year. And then 32nd overall, both of us matched here with the Seahawks picking Colton Hood, Tennessee cornerback. I love Colton Hood. I'm sorry, I got to do it one time for the show. It's the Hood celebration. That is one of the coolest things. I'm sorry out there. I just want to if the Steelers get him, that everyone's going to be doing that in Pittsburgh.
You and I were hitting that in Mobile together. We're like,
every time he broke up a pass, he would do that. And I was like, that's really cool. So I like that. But your picks there in the receiver you were talking about, 30th overall, Broncos taking Omar Cooper Jr. My goodness. Omar Cooper Jr., one of the biggest winners of the combine, in my opinion. I want to get your thoughts on that. But then you finish out with CJ Allen, the linebacker of Georgia. He goes 31st overall to the Patriots. And then, like I said, we both have Colton Hood, cornerback out of Tennessee, going to the Seahawks. Run us through Omar Cooper Jr. I think I made a mistake. He needs to be in my first round because I think he blew it up at the combine, and I love his tape.
He is just a old school, but also modernized slot that can play outside, man. He is a tough as nails player. The ability to make catches through traffic. You remember when we heard when I was on the show last week, Daniel Jeremiah talked about those receivers making catches through traffic, making tough grabs. You want to talk about the most dude that fits this? I mean, Omar Cooper does everything you want. If he's not the front of progression, he's running every route 100 miles per hour. He blocks his tail off. He's got great hands. He runs crisp routes. He's just the solid do-it-all busy bee player, and he fits really well with the Broncos, I think. Cortland Sutton's there. They got some guys like Marvin Mims and Troy Franklin that do some different things. He's the real chain mover that they would get. But Omar Cooper, to me, like, someone asked me yesterday, like, would you take Omar Cooper 21? And while I didn't go Omar Cooper like a first-round grade, he's a top 30 player to me. I think he's my number 26 player on my big board. If the Steelers took him at 21 overall, I think some people will be like, that's an egregious reach. I don't see it, man. He's a really good football player. He is a ball player. That is the type of guy Omar Cooper is. He is going to give you a very high floor. I think there's still things to be untapped. He's a really good athlete. I can't remember who said it, but someone said he's the Ramseyest receiver in this draft. I could totally see him going 29 overall. I had Makai Lemon, so I didn't put him there, but I love that fit as well. For him, he is very Ramsey in a lot of ways. And so he is just a really fun, do-it-all, solid player. There's still some limitations. I don't think he runs perfect routes. I think some of his routes and stems become a little rounded. And I do think press coverage is going to be something he's going to have to battle. So how much is he going to play outside versus just in the slot? But he is such a fun player that is it's going to be just a guy that I think you're going to have in that building for a decade. So, yeah, man, I'm on the Omar Cooper train. I think he's a really good player.
I love Omar Cooper too, man. Maybe the Steelers just need to trade back so they can get him and then get extra day 2 value there on the show. But thank you, Nick, for joining us here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. A reminder, our picks for the Steelers, he went Jordyn Tyson, Arizona State wide receiver. I went Kayden McDonald for the Steelers, Ohio State defensive tackle, because Jordyn Tyson was off the board at this point. With that being said, what do you guys think on YouTube, on Spotify, on Apple, wherever you're listening to this podcast? Let us know either in the comments section of this YouTube page, of this YouTube's episode, or in your or on Twitter, or wherever you get your social medias. Nick, thanks so much for joining us here. Let people know to find you, follow you, and get more of your work.
Yeah, that bark was from my dog Benny, so he says hi.
Hi, Benny.
He is just he's like a 16-week-old puppy, so he gets going. But you can follow me on Twitter at Farabaugh FB. Make sure to check out the stuff at PennLive.com/Steelers, and make sure to follow the YouTube channel, The Steelers Blitz on PennLive.
Absolutely. He's Nick Farabaugh. I'm Chris Carter, host of the Locked On Steelers podcast. You can catch me on social media. All my ads are at Carter Critiques at all those different social media apps. We thank you for coming here. You can also read my work in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, including a breakdown of my full first-round mock that you saw here with well-written explanations and breaking down the picks. Get that at post-gazette.com. Find me here on the Locked On Steelers podcast every day, Monday through Friday, breaking down your Pittsburgh Steelers on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this channel to get all of our daily Monday through Friday episodes. Back here tomorrow with another episode of the Locked On Steelers podcast.